Okay, good evening, YouTube. Welcome back to this next episode of FPL Family with me, Lee, and this is Sam, and you're already wrecking the show. Excellent.
Well,
all right.
it was
What's going
nowhere
on?
near correct.
I've tested all this before we come on. What's going on?
Yeah, but I wasn't here, was I?
You weren't here for the test. That's the big problem here.
And then I've sat
That's the
down,
big
and
problem.
you've got the camera. Oh, now my chair's in the way. You've got the.
All right. Are you ready?
That's better.
Are you set? Are you happy?
It's better. It's still not quite right, is it?
How would you like to change it? Would you like to move it a little bit closer or
No.
change the camera? You're happy? Live in play changes. It's like back to the old days.
It's too far away. Why is it so far away?
Would you like me to move it a bit closer? Let me move it a bit closer for you, dear.
No,
There we go. Right, here we go. Are you happy with that? Right. This is right. I've had enough. You can do... Or do you just want to take over? Go on. Off you go. You do the intro. Go on. No, go on. Intro. Go on. Get off.
Right, hang on, wait.
We've got
to get the mic back up. Right, the podcasters are going to wonder what on earth's going on here.
Podcasters are used to this absolute guff.
Right,
The
stop.
The podcasters
Stop.
are like, this is standard.
I'll
Absolutely
happily
standard.
do the intro, but let's just get set up first. Hang on.
Right.
Hang on.
You ready? Happy?
No, because now the mic won't stand up.
Right. There we go.
Okay. Oh, see, look.
Okay, would you
Hang on,
like to
wait,
move that
no,
back
no,
a little
just
bit?
Wait.
Okay.
Wait, calm down, dear.
I'm calm. Right, off you go. You can do the intro.
Right, get off. Okay. Wait.
It's
Okay.
ridiculous.
No, it's still not right.
I don't. Do you know?
We're ready.
What I usually do is like I'll just record the audio from the beginning. Should I cut this bit for the podcast or should I leave it in? Because the podcast will be like, what the hell are they doing?
Why
again?
don't you?
It's just
Okay, we're
like
ready.
the YouTubers are like, yeah, this is the standard, but the podcasters are a fairly new audience for us. They're just like, what are they doing again every week? The start is absolute rubbish. Changing cameras and
Okay, we're ready. Hi everyone, and welcome to the FPL Family YouTube channel. I'm Sam. This is Lee. It's game week 10.
Yeah. What next?
How's your game week? There you go.
I can see why you don't host the bloody the official podcast. Good
because we've
evening,
got Kelly.
everybody. Good evening, everyone. Lee and Sam here from FPL Family.
You told me to do it.
In a week, Sam, this is how I was going to start it before that shenanigans. In a week where it seemed like everybody was bringing in Ollie Watkins and waiting for his hat-trick against Luton, it was the premiums that again came back to the fore and said, here is why I'm expensive. Erling Haaland sellers. If you are an Erling Haaland seller, get in the chat. Get in the comments of the video. Let me know how you're feeling about that result today and what you're going to do next. Because if you don't have Erling Haaland for next week, I suspect you're going to need to find a pretty big sofa to go and hide behind, right? Do you agree?
I mean, we've both got Erling Haaland. We are getting a new sofa this week. We could hide behind it.
We're going to need a big one. It's going to need to be big.
But we've both got Haaland.
We've both got Haaland, so we're all right. But if you haven't got him, we'd love to know what you're going to do next. So Haaland's coming in. Salah's coming in again. Thanks in no small part to Turner in goal for Nottingham Forest, who dropped an absolute clang. Have you seen the Salah goal?
Oh, I was thinking, what are you thanking Turner for?
Are you all right tonight? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Have you seen the Salah goal, yes or no?
No, dear.
No, okay. Well, Turner comes running out, completely misses it, and Salah gets his goal.
Do you think that Turner had captain Salah?
No, I don't think that he did. I just think he come just out and missed it completely. So Salah's coming in. Son as well coming in on Friday night. You must be happy with that. Spurs 5 points clear at the end of Friday, which was good.
I had a lovely Friday. Although, to be fair, the last sort of, well, it was added time, wasn't it? I was very stressed. We didn't need that stress in our lives. Why is VAR not giving that as a handball?
Well,
I'm not happy about that. And then it led to 5 minutes of just me feeling like I was on edge.
Yeah, we will talk about the Spurs game a bit later on. Because,
but yeah, it was nice to be top of the league and still there.
Yeah, Spurs top of the league. We're 5 points clear on Friday. What a time to be alive. Unbelievable. But yeah, the handball, it threw me completely because I thought it was a handball.
Yeah.
It just brushes his hand, doesn't it? In terms of there is a little tiny touch, but there's still a touch, right? And
it comes off and he touches it. And And it helps him keep it in the path.
Yeah, and as far as I was aware, with the rules, as long as it touches the hand in, even if it's just a little brush like that, it's still a handball.
And it can be accidental.
I don't know, and it cost me a Porro clean sheet, which I was very upset about. We'll talk about that a bit later on. So Spurs doing very well, Son coming in, Salah, Haaland, all the big boys returning, and some of the medium-priced assets coming to the fore now as well. Núñez getting a goal, Callum Wilson at the double for Newcastle, which, given that Isak's injured, maybe that's one we need to talk about. Who else? Diaby coming to the party. There was a whole load of FPL assets again doing the business this week, really doing the business. However, I've been on FPL Twitter, and there is a bit of... What are you doing now?
I just noticed, when I cut your hair,
Yes.
I missed a bit.
Right.
There's a bit that's really long.
Is there anything else you want to change in the setup, be it mics, microphone, or hair?
I can't cut your hair.
I
can't cut your hair midstream.
Okay, good.
We'll have to do that at the end.
Okay, good. I've completely lost where I was. What was I talking about?
I don't know, you said about Mr. Diaby and the cheaper ones coming quite good. And then...
Oh, and then I was saying that on FPL Twitter, yeah, it does seem quite... It seems still quite polarised, though. There is quite a few bad game weeks out there, but there is some very, very good game weeks as well, from what I've seen.
Well, I think the thing is that there was... For those people that have sold Haaland, and I know that still feels like a small group of people that have done it, but actually it isn't really. He's dropped, 7% ownership, I think, now. So that is a fairly substantial group of people that have done that now.
I had a little green arrow every time he did something today, which was quite unusual. Didn't captain him.
No, exactly.
And I'm thinking every time he's... I think I said to you at the beginning of the game, I was... as he's about to take the penalty,
yeah.
I was like, don't mind if he misses this, because I'm thinking his EO's like over 100.
Yeah.
And actually, no, it helped me.
Yeah.
It was about 2 or 3k every time he did something.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, exactly. And I think for those people that haven't sold or that have sold Haaland in the last few weeks, the players that they invested in or have in their team are then players that then didn't return. So they probably got players like Ollie Watkins, Alvarez, players like that who this week didn't come in. Trippier. Who this week didn't come in with anything.
Yeah, nothing. 0 pointer for trips.
And that will be frustrating because obviously, when you make that decision to sell Haaland, if you make that decision to sell Haaland, you do it because you kind of go, okay, well, I can move budget around. That enables me to have all of these other players who are expensive.
Yeah, a balanced team. The balanced team. Yeah.
But the trouble is that for a lot of those managers, that balancing the team out thing just didn't really work out because the players that they've balanced out their team with just didn't return. And I think that will have been a frustration. Plus, there was a large movement of people at the back end of last week moving away from Spurs and onto players like Arsenal, like Brighton.
Everyone like the Sakas and the Mitomas and people like that, right?
And of course, yes, all right, we got a little returns for some Arsenal assets, then we got real frustration with others, with the likes of Gabriel not starting at all. And the Spurs boys continue to do really well. And those that, held Udogie because you weren't really sure, that was a frustration because obviously he didn't start. So if you've ended up in your team with Gabriel and Udogie, then that's been a problem. So I can see why it's so polarised this week in terms of those that have got reds seem to be quite bad, and those that have got greens tend to be quite nice.
Nice, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Trini Guna is in the chat. Hey, Trini. It says, he or she says, just joined. How much did I miss? Let me tell you, Trini, you've missed absolutely nothing whatsoever. What? All that you've missed is Sam faffing about with the camera, the microphone, and weirdly, my hair. So apart from that, Trini, you've missed nothing.
I didn't mean to faff around with your hair. It's just that I don't normally sit at this angle from you.
Trini, if you've just joined, you are absolutely bang on time. You're absolutely bang on time. Kenneth M, thank you for the super chat. Oh, Kenneth, it's very kind of you. Love you two. Such a natural niggly couple, yet a natural chemistry that works. I don't know about that. I think that's complete nonsense, mate. But thank you very much for the super chat and for the sentiment. What are you talking about?
We must have natural chemistry. We've been together for 19 odd years.
True, and we've been doing this for about 7 odd years or so as well.
There must be some chemistry there.
Must be something there. Must be. Otherwise I'd have buggered off and left by now.
What? What do you mean you'd have buggered off and left by now?
Sure enough.
I think I'll be the one that leaves if you carry on being rude.
Who else is in? Webby is in. We've got Mr. T. We've got Danny McDonald. Hey, Danny. A non-Haaland owner, Danny McDonald.
Yeah, Danny was
there. In the Slack. So, Danny, don't know what you're going to be doing for next week, mate. You're finding a big sofa to hide behind.
I think he said he was off to DFS.
Off to DFS to find a sofa, Danny. Yeah, I love that. Azzy is here. Smith's 1986. How you doing, mate? Glenn Harper is in. Glenn says, Szoboszlai rules. Too bad he's not a better FPL option. Well, he certainly came good in FPL today. What a player this kid is. What a player. I've got to talk about him a bit later on. Unbelievable. Liam Healy is in. Hey, Liam, how you doing, mate? How are you feeling about his team? Liam's team, of course, is Bristol City.
Sacked the manager.
Sacked the manager today, in case you missed that one. All of you Premier League followers out there might have missed that. Yeah, Liam's team, Bristol City, sacked. Nigel Pearson gone today. Gone. So, from what the guys, and I don't know a lot about it, but from what the other guys in the Slack were telling me, not unexpected or not before time, potentially, for Nigel Pearson. Not before time. We've got Rico Stevens here. He says, sounds like we missed more like FPL Family Gold, Rico. Well, some would call it that, mate. Some would call it an utter farce, mate. But either way, you did miss...
But I think, right.
What?
I'm not being funny, but I think people come here sometimes because we're mental.
I don't think I don't think that's true. Really?
They come here for the laugh.
Right. Okay,
they come here because it's a bit of entertainment on a Sunday night, isn't it?
It is. It doesn't matter whether you've had a good week or a bad week. You just come
here,
along and just get in the chat.
FPL.
That's what it's all about.
The camera will be in the wrong place because Lee set it up when I wasn't here.
Yeah, all
the
of that.
mic will fall over.
All of that.
All of this nonsense. I mean, to be honest, that's the least of the nonsense that's happened over the years on our streams.
We've had worse, haven't we? We've had worse. Greg Frost is in. How are we doing? He's a great player, Sir Boz. He says Sir Boz. I've not heard that one before. That's good. FPL Shorts, Lee in the doghouse. I'm not. If anything, you're in the doghouse, not me. I was here, ready, doghouse? Set up the camera, everything. It was all absolutely fine. And Webby is saying it was fully professional. Thank you, Webby. It wasn't, mate, but it's very kind of you to say so.
What was professional? The setup before, or the setup is now?
Just this live stream, just
in
general.
I don't think anyone really calls us professional anymore.
Yeah, Wilco's in. Thank you, Wilco, for the super chat. Much appreciated, mate. I love that. Sold Son Archer and bought in Watkins and Gordon. Oh, and he benched Mbomo as well. Goodness me, benched Mbomo. Doku blocking Mbomo coming on as well. Should have just fallen asleep before the deadline and not done anything.
Wilco.
I love that, Wilco. I love that. So listen, guys, a whole host of you in. We're going to do what we usually do here on a Sunday night, is lark about and Sam play with my hair. But also talk about...
I don't normally play with your hair.
But also talk about some fixtures. We're going to talk about the Manchester derby. We're going to talk about everything that happened yesterday. And we're going to start, Sam, by going all the way back to Friday night, to Crystal Palace 1, Spurs 2. At the end of that game, at least Spurs were top of the league by 5 points. 5 points. And they are still there by 2 points from Arsenal, I guess, or from City. Both 2 points behind, yeah. I think. But nevertheless, what a time to be alive. The Ange Ball revolution rolls on, and
I'm so happy.
You're happy, but what about from an FPL perspective? Because if I look at these fixtures going forward, the Spurs fixtures read like this. Chelsea at home next, and we'll talk about how difficult that game might be, or otherwise, he says. Then Wolves, then Aston Villa. So, difficult looking games on paper. City, West Ham at home, Newcastle. It's mixed, isn't it? I would say it's mixed. You've got some difficult looking fixtures coming up on paper, but Sam from FPL Family, you cannot sell your Spurs players, can you? You just cannot sell them at the minute. If you've got Son and you're looking to move to a Saka, or if you want a Man City midfielder or something, you ain't doing it, are you? You're not selling Son ahead of Chelsea at home, surely.
No, I said to you when we were watching the Man City game today, it's a shame that Haaland's gone back off today in some ways, because I'd actually really like to captain Son next week.
Yeah.
Because the way that we are playing, the confidence that Spurs exude, the fact it's a Monday night game, so we played Friday, we don't play again until Monday, because no League Cup. So it's just a really nice long break for them. I noticed that yesterday evening they all went out for dinner together.
Did they?
Yeah, they were posting on social media, all of them larking around in some restaurant that they were in.
The spirit is quite incredible, isn't it? The spirit is so good. And it was typified by the return of Rodrigo Bentancur, who came off the bench. He's been injured for a long time, isn't he, Bentancur? And he came on off the bench.
Since February.
The fans are singing his name. The players are all like pointing at him at full time and stuff. It was incredible to see. And that is absolutely the sort of spirit.
I've got more issues now.
What have you got now?
Oh, my contact lens.
You've got a contact lens issue. Yeah. Do you need to go and sort that out? Your eye is looking quite red. You probably ought to go and sort. What even is this tonight? What even is this tonight? This is like going back to the. Do you remember the first year, guys? Any of you OGs that are like in, and I know there's a few of you in. I could see the names. The OGs from the first ever season of FPL Family. It was like this every time. We barely talked about FPL. It was just.
I don't know what's even happened here.
It was just like sorting children out at bedtime and all sorts. I'll continue to talk about Spurs while you sort your contact lens out. Randy, yeah. Thanks, Randy, for the comment. Yeah, outtakes. We do need like an FPL Family outtakes for just for this show. Quite frankly, just for this show.
I can talk from here. Bentancur coming back was genuinely.
Yeah, I'll do it because you're nowhere near the microphone. It's going to sound. You can't do a Spurs analysis from halfway across the room.
I've just taken my lens out now. Actually, luckily, I have got.
Great. I'm great. I'm pleased to hear it. I'm great.
Hang on. I think there's some liquid in here. Hang on, let me just check.
Good. Okay, good.
Yeah, there is. I can do it with. I can only see out of one eye now.
Okay, sure. You seem very, very keen to talk about Spurs, so go on. I will let you talk about Spurs.
No, you go on. You give your opinion because I got a.
Okay.
Right.
So I thought you were very, very good, and I don't think you can sell Spurs assets now ahead of the Chelsea game. The Chelsea game on paper is one of those games that in previous seasons, yes, you'd say it was difficult to call, but the way that Chelsea are playing at the minute, I think you'd back Spurs all day long. I thought Son had a bit of a quiet game, I would say. He had one shot on target, which was the goal. Not massively involved other than that, but then Palace did their level best to kind of frustrate and do what Palace do best, which is not to allow too much space. Certainly not any space in behind. And for about an hour, 70 minutes, they did defend very, very well, I thought, Crystal Palace. But again, we go back to, what we're seeing from Spurs this season, right? It's not typical Spurs that we've seen in previous years, right? This is a Spurs that are willing to be patient. They're willing to be persistent. They're willing to keep going, knowing that eventually it's going to come. And even when Palace got that, what I would consider a rather fortuitous goal, and take nothing away from Jordan Ayew in the finish, it was a good finish. But for me, it's a handball. The Spurs of previous seasons would have been like panic stations, wouldn't it? Panic stations, and you end up drawing that game. But you didn't. You saw the game out, and it was a really, really good result. So, again, Maddison, for me, though, I just think he's... Of course, if you've got Son, you're not going to sell him ahead of Chelsea. But ditto Maddison, right? Maddison, as usual, pulling the strings absolutely everywhere for Spurs. And I know that Brennan Johnson gets the assist for the Son goal, but Madders makes that, doesn't he? A little bit of skill. He attracts 3 Palace defenders, a little bit of through the legs, a little flick over to Brennan Johnson, who's just come on, so he's full of energy, bursting right into the box, and he lays it off for Son, who can't miss. I think they're all really good assets. And even at the back, Pedro Porro, who I had, obviously I was gutted not to get the 6 and the clean sheet, obviously, particularly as I thought it was a handball.
I think he was on for 7.
And he was due to get a bonus point as well, wasn't he? So I was a bit aggrieved, I won't lie. I was a bit disappointed about that because I genuinely thought it absolutely was a handball and he should have had the clean sheet, but never mind. How are you feeling as a Udogie owner? Because you've got him. Any concern or no?
I sold him.
Oh, you sold Udogie, okay. And why was that?
Because he's injured.
Okay. Is he long-term injured then?
No, but he went off on 55. So it was interesting because Postecoglou at the beginning of the week said, after the Fulham game on Monday evening, said, we took him off on 55 because he felt something. Once we went 2-0 up, we didn't need to risk it. Then he made another comment a couple of days later in his presser, I think it was on Thursday, where he said, and Andrew's quite honest, so if he says something...
He's very
listen
honest.
to it.
Yeah.
So when he said something like, Sarr's come back fine, Udogie hasn't. And at that point, he didn't rule him out of the game, but I was like, well, he's not going to play then.
Yeah.
He just won't play him. If he's actually a risk at all, he won't play him. So I sold him for Simicast. That went well. But I think the Spurs defence are really... I mean, we can talk about Chelsea in a minute, who we've got next. I wouldn't be selling a Spurs defender ahead of that Chelsea game because Chelsea just don't...
No.
They just didn't know how to score a goal against Brentford yesterday. And, I think Spurs were really unfortunate. The defence is such a rock-solid unit and I didn't think...
Van der Ven is a player, isn't he?
Oh my God,
Where'd you pick this guy up from? You got him in the summer, relatively... A bit like us and Szoboszlai. It wasn't like a battle to get this guy.
No, quietly.
He just comes in, Spurs get the job done... You signed a top player there. Really good.
Yeah, nice and quietly got it done. And the same with Vicario, the goalkeeper. And he's made some lovely comments this week about how once Spurs were in for him, that was it. He didn't want to talk to anybody else. That was the end of it. And I just think the back line, the way that they are at the moment, Romero giving him the vice captain's armband is the best thing that anyone's done for him in terms of the way that he thinks, the way that he positions himself. His general emotional responses are so different now to what they were last season. Yeah. He's playing alongside Van der Ven, who is rock solid, so much older than he actually is. Like the intelligence of the kid is unbelievable.
Plays like a 32-year-old, doesn't he? I think
so good,
yeah. Like a seasoned professional.
Yeah, and so fast, and so gets back quick, and covers really well. I will say that I didn't think it worked quite as well with Ben Davies on that side but I think he was trying something different. He was trying to tell them to have a bit more patience with the build-up play because of the way that Crystal Palace are.
Yeah.
So they weren't being quite the attacking. They were told to be a bit more patient, I think. They weren't going quite as much down the edges. Then they changed that for Royale and it worked a lot better in the second half. But yeah, defensively looking great. Vicario looking really solid. Made some great saves in that game.
And so just a quick shout to both of those actually, Vicario and Romero. So Simon's saying hi Simon by the way. What a beast Romero is on bonus. He is. Although what I will say is that there was about a minute's worth of passing between him and Vicario.
Yeah.
At some stage during that second half. Goal. Yeah, it was like the goal went in and Palace they didn't push on, right? Palace didn't push on. It was almost as if we're still going to sit back, let Spurs come on and still try and hit you on a counter-attack and try and get a draw out of this game. But there was a good 40-50 seconds where they literally just passed to each other, Vicario and Romero. And I said to you, didn't I? Sat there and I said, well, that'll help with the pass completion. And so it proved, because actually until the Jordan Ayew goal, it was those two that were on for top bonus, and I think Porro on for the one. And the reason that those two were on for top bonus, I'm sure Romero is a bonus beast, but I'm pretty sure also it was to do with the fact that the pass completion rate between him and Vicario was just insane. Just passed it back and forth to each other.
But also, didn't you say that Romero it's the most that's ever happened in Spurs? The most. What did you say?
I saw this on Twitter just before we coming on. That's broken the Spurs club record of most passes completed in a football match.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
Was it 141 or something?
144. I was like, that's absolutely ridiculous. But then, 140 of them was him and Vicario just like Sunday League, knocking it to each other. It's unreal. And then what happened, of course, Ayew scores the goal. It wipes out the clean sheet. So all those pass completions that are worth less BPS than the overall clean sheet, knock them down. And then obviously, all of a sudden, Son, who's got the winning goal in that game, then jumps to the top, right? So it was a bit of watching the BPS evolve over that game was really weird.
But I think, if you've got a Spurs defender, in the more longer term, there might be an issue because, are we expecting clean sheets against Villa, against Man City, teams like that? Well, probably not. However, will there be one against Chelsea and maybe Wolves the week after?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a Spurs defender now because mine was injured, but I think if I had a Porro or a Van der Ven or a Romero or a Vicario, I wouldn't be looking to swap them ahead of this game against Chelsea.
No.
And I certainly would not be selling either Son or Maddison ahead of Monday night's football because they're just everything great about what happens going forward. One of them's involved. Or both of them are involved. Like they're all over the place. And you sounded a bit like Mr. Laurent in the beginning of that intro to Spurs because he always talks about the second assist and how he wants them credited and Maddison's really was great. Like his pass to Brennan Johnson was absolutely phenomenal and Brennan Johnson made a great pass to Son, but that's the thing in the past with Son, you would never see him getting tap-ins like that. But the change in position that he's playing in now means that that's likely, and I think that there's such a great camaraderie. Like even after the game when they spoke to Son and they interviewed him on Sky, he was talking in such a positive way and the smiles on their faces and the fans had stayed behind in the stands, hadn't they, and they were cheering for him, and and I just was like, there's a change here, that it's not just that we're playing better, there's a genuine changing feeling at Spurs, and when that happens, that's why I couldn't bring myself to invest in Spurs this week.
I spoke to one of my Spurs mates, and I've got a lot of Spurs mates, but I spoke to one of them on text on that Friday night. And we were talking about something random, and then we started to talk about Spurs, and I said, look, you're going to win the league now, 5 points clear. And he said something that really stuck with me on the text. He said, that would be great, but I don't care about the league. I just love my football club right now.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm just like, that is telling, isn't it? All the Spurs fans are just in love with this team.
Just so
and
happy.
And the connection between the players and the fans is absolutely there, which is key, right? Which is key.
And I think for years, in FPL, we've only been able to have Harry. It's been like, you can have Harry, but that's it. And you've never really known what you're going to get with Spurs. And sometimes you get amazing results and they leave you on a high. And sometimes you just absolutely crash and burn. And we've had managers that just haven't worked. The change in feeling here, right now, means we'll be competing regardless all season. We will score goals all season because that is how we're going to play football. Even if we're not competing for the league, fine. We will play this attacking football all campaign. Yeah. So that's going to make selling the likes of Maddison and Son really, really difficult.
Okay.
And I wouldn't advise it ahead of that game against Chelsea.
Well, let's talk about them next. So you're right. Spurs...
Before we move on from this one, though, one thing I will say is the Crystal Palace fixtures swing now. So...
Okay, yeah, go on.
Actually, if you've got an Anderson or like I've got a Gahey on my bench... It is worth noting.
Right, I should notice that. Yeah, Burnley, Everton, Luton, West Ham, Bournemouth next to Palace.
Yeah, it's worth noting. It's why I've held Mark Gahey all this time. And if you've got an Anderson who did pick up the assist in the game against Spurs, if you've got him, it's worth noting that. And if you're looking for a problematic defender, you want to replace, Crystal Palace actually looks all right. And defensively, they're solid.
They're all right. Yeah, they did. They defended well against you for a long period. And in the end, it was, I think, the fitness and the quality that shone through in the end. But... yeah, look, it's very easy to get, caught up in it all as a Spurs fan, but I'm happily sitting, I've watched a lot of football over my years that I've watched Premier League. You can spot a good team. And at the minute, Spurs are a really good team.
Yay.
And I would not be selling ahead of the next game against this mob. How is Mauricio Pochettino going to feel coming back to Tottenham Hotspur? Because I assume it's at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as well, isn't it? Mm. Now, I suspect he'll get a reasonable reception, Pochettino. I would have thought.
He'll get a good reaction, and then we'll go, because I'll be there, and then we'll give him a clap, and then we'll instantly be singing about Postecoglou, and that'll be it.
Welcome back, Poch, but game on.
We've moved on.
Yeah, totally.
And that's how it will be.
Tell us about this game then. Chelsea 0, Brentford 2, because, again, weird game, right? This is a game where I thought Chelsea, and again, if you're a Chelsea fan, get in the chat, get in the comments, let me know how you felt about this game. I thought for the first half, Chelsea were far the better team. Really, really good. And even up until the first goal by Ethan Pinnock, they were the better side. They were dominating the ball, but they just so bad in the final third. Yeah. They're just so bad in that final third. The final pass, be it Sterling or whoever it was, and I don't want to pick on Sterling because he's been good for us in FPL so far this season, but his final pass was just lacking. It really was. And I don't know, I just don't rate Jackson either. He showed some promise in that first half, but just looks like he's lacking so much confidence in front of the goal. Just an all-round bad performance. And I can't see, honestly, anything right now other than a Spurs win. The one thing, next Monday that is, the one thing I will say is that in games where I've watched Chelsea against a team that sits in a bit deeper, like Brentford did in that first half, they really struggle to break down. Really struggle. The low block, they haven't got a clue. They desperately need Nkunku back to find a bit of magic to break down that low block. So they really struggled, and Brentford were like, well, you just keep coming on to us, and we'll just keep counter-attacking. Because for all Brentford are, they're a strong counter-attacking team. And then Bremo's pace, Visser's pace, they got pace on the counter. And Chelsea just almost tentatively knocking on the door, knowing that if they knocked a bit too hard, they know they're going to get in behind. And that's how it actually ended up, right, with the goals. Particularly the second one, although they were particularly, it was right at the end of the game. So against that low block, they struggle. Now, what I will say about Chelsea's fixtures coming up is that they're not going to be playing teams necessarily that are playing the low block. Like you won't, right? Spurs will play, obviously. Wolves at Molineux. Where are Chelsea? Then City next, then Newcastle. Oh my God, they got some difficult games, haven't they? They're coming up against teams that are not going to play that low block.
But they can't score goals, Lee.
But they can't. These teams are going to muller them, right? I mean,
But the problem I've got with this is that you're right. You're absolutely right. Everything you've just said is correct. But they got done by Brentford because they did not take a single one of their chances. They had lots of them. They created a lot. They can't finish. So they didn't.
Did they create big chances, or was it like half chances?
I think. I think there were some reasonable chances in that game.
Okay.
I've watched Chelsea a few times this season. We watched this with my dad and my brother, and they're not. They just don't finish them, and the problem is if you don't finish your chances, and you're attacking in numbers,
in this league you get punished.
You will get punished because Brentford have got good players, and Buemo turned up this time to punish all those that had sold him. I think against Spurs, we will attack them. That will potentially let them get in and give them some space. But the thing is, we've got a rock-solid defence. So they're going to be coming up against players like Romero, like Van der Ven, who don't give you any opportunities. Like, they will close down.
And this is the reason I've been sitting here Sunday after Sunday talking about, Poch not making Christmas, because I take a lot of my Chelsea input from your dad and your brother, right? They are religious Chelsea fans.
Massive.
They used to go all the time.
They still go a fair bit.
They still go quite a bit, but they are, they'll watch Chelsea,
never miss a minute.
They never miss a minute. And even when you and I watch, sometimes we'll be watching football and we do a bit of Twitter or a bit of this, bit of that. They you ever seen your dad and your brother? They do not look at their phones the whole game. It's like they will watch Chelsea.
If you try to have a conversation with them, they're like half time.
Yeah, it's just like, don't talk to me. I'm watching Chelsea. So they are watching the whole time. So whenever they're saying something, I listen. And yeah, at the end of that game, they were like, he's got to go. And I'm like, here we go. I was like, here we go. It's now going to start, right? They needed to beat Brentford at the weekend. And the reason they needed to beat Brentford is because they've got to go to Spurs next. That's an L. City at home. City will win that. St James's Park. I mean, they're not going to win another game in November. And then Brighton at home in 14. Okay, that's suddenly a lot of pressure on that. Manchester United away at Old Trafford. Okay, don't care what you saw today, right? That's still...
Well, you could have new managers at both clubs by then.
Who knows?
They might have swapped managers.
And even then, Goodison Park in 16. I mean, even that, if DCL can stay fit, they've proved today they can be hard to break down under Dyche. So, I did say a few weeks ago I didn't think Poch was going to make Halloween. I think he might. But
he's going to make Halloween. That's Tuesday.
But he ain't making Christmas. 100%. Look at those fixtures. He's a goner. And I think they are all over the place. And I've got none of them in FPL. The only Chelsea player that stood out for me, and I noticed that actually, according to the Fantasy Football Scout members area, he is joint top for chances created this game week, which plays to your narrative of Chelsea actually creating some chances. Was Palmer. So Palmer was in there with 4 chances created alongside Hughes from Palace, Dahoud from Brighton and Szoboszlai from Liverpool. They were the top chance creators this game week. So Palmer is there, and because he's cheap and on penalties, it's fine to have him in your team. But what do you think? They're not going to win any of those next 3. And then even Brighton at home in 14 is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, they have actually got a really good record against us, but then the records against us thing maybe
against
doesn't...
the old Spurs,
maybe it doesn't stand anymore, I don't know, we'll see when we... I mean, I think we will go into it brimming with confidence. They will come into it brimming with apprehension, I think, because they will be really aware that they're not winning games and they have to start winning games. They're 14 points behind us.
Yeah.
We're only 10 game weeks in. That is ridiculous for Chelsea. That is such an uphill battle to get back up, even if not...
Do you think top 4's gone for them?
Well, it's very difficult for it to be on when they're 14 points behind after 10
I think top 4's gone for them. It's gone. It's absolutely gone. And if it hasn't gone, then it will be in 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
How are they getting past you lot, City, Arsenal, Liverpool?
They've basically got to win every game between now and the end of the season.
And Newcastle. Yeah, it's not going to happen, right? Top 4's gone. And what happens at Chelsea, we've seen it time in, time out, season in, season out, is that as soon as their goal goes... That's it. Head's gone.
Yeah.
And the club switch off. And it'll get to January and it'll be like, well, what are we fighting for? And they'll just go into a black hole again. Nigel Simon's absolutely right. Chelsea are toast this season. I agree. Enough about them, because I don't want to talk about them anymore, because we're not going there in FPL. Might we go to Brentford, though? I
think this is more of a question for you than it is for me. Because did you want to tell everyone about what you nearly did? this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I will, absolutely. So, for sure, the plan going into this game week was to upgrade, if that's the right phrase, in Bomo to Bowen. That was absolutely the plan.
That was your plan, yeah.
And I kept money in the bank to do that.
A bit like me and Saka.
Yeah,
Changed
absolutely.
my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the end, I didn't do it because I was so maniacally focused on getting Watkins this week that I thought, well, that's where I'm going to spend my transfers. And I didn't like the fact that I was getting rid of Alvarez for Watkins either. So that was a real 50-50 for me. But for sure, Mbeumo was a sell for me in my plan, the original plan A this week.
The other part of that transfer at one point, because you were originally talking about when we were doing our Ohana podcast for our patrons at the back end of last week. You did say you had multiple things that you were thinking about. One of them was just to do the Mbeumo and Bowen thing. One of them was the Watkins and Alvarez thing. And one of them involved a -8, didn't it, to upgrade Cameron Archer?
Yeah, I don't know how seriously I was ever really taking that because I don't like hits. Never mind. A -8, I haven't done a -8 for years, I don't think. Because I just don't like it. But there was a world where there is a draft on my phone, a screenshot, that has Archer to Watkins, and to do that I needed to downgrade the keeper from Flecken to Turner, and I took out Diaby and Mbeumo to fund it. But
can you imagine how
there's
raging
no point
you'd have been
doing that look to camera because I never really considered it. I just sort of mocked it up, right?
I don't know.
But Mbeumo for sure. I was never taking Diaby out ahead of Luton, but Mbeumo for sure I was considering taking out. So you're asking me the question about Brentford then. I think they're now a keep. I think he's probably a hold,
Who they
right?
got next?
Well, it's West Ham at home next, if I remember rightly.
West Ham look poor today.
So I don't think that I'm going to be selling him ahead of that. It's then a trip to Anfield, then it's Arsenal. So 12 and 13 is tricky for Brian Mbeumo. But then it's Luton at home in 14. It's like, well, do I...
He no longer looks a priority sell, does he?
No, and I don't think he ever was a priority sell. He was just always the one that I planned to sell to get Bowen.
Right.
And I look at today and I look at, that fixture, and we'll talk about West Ham in a second, but West Ham looked a bit leggy. They looked a bit sort of...
They were really disappointed and no shots on target.
Yeah, it was almost as if the sort of season was catching up with them a little bit, and Antonio was poor again. I will give a shout out to Kudus. I think he looked really good. He looked sharp. There's a player in there, no doubt about it.
Well, yeah, I mean they've always got, but then they've got problems next week as well, haven't they? Because then they've got two important players as well, in Paqueta and Alvarez, picking up their 5th yellow cards. So,
I noticed that Paqueta and Alvarez both suspended, aren't they?
So now I think with Mbeumo, you're going into a game where you're going to have a quite compromised West Ham team, as in not necessarily who David Moyes would want to have played in that fixture.
Yeah.
So Mbeumo and any other Brentford asset that you might have in your team kind of feels like you probably want to hold him now for the West Ham game.
I am going to hold him, I think. I am going to hold him. And also, the 2 double-digit hauls he's got for me in the last couple of weeks, then I've made a difference to my rank.
Yeah, I bet.
Nice differential. He's sitting at something like high teens, maybe early 20s in terms of his EO, which is really, really nice when those goals come in. In actual fact, it was a nice assist for Pinnock's goal. Although it was a real loopy cross. They had to deal with it, Chelsea. I couldn't believe they didn't deal with it, Chelsea. But then just before the goal, which of course was a little bit on the jammy side because it was the kind of last minute, Chelsea had pushed forward all the rest of it. But he missed almost a bit of a sitter just before that. And I was like, I've missed the opportunity there for a haul. And then, of course, he popped up in the very last minute with that goal. So Mbeumo, after me, really showing a bit of lack of faith in the last couple of weeks and wanting to sell him and sort of being like, I've got other things I want to do. Just one more week then, Brian. He's got me like 25 points in 2 weeks. Absolutely unreal.
You've got to show some loyalty back now.
Have to. Yeah, have to show some loyalty, but have to keep him for the West Ham game. Where else do you want to go, Sam? We've watched some of the games from today. We did watch that West Ham game.
Let's talk about that first, because obviously they've got that's who Brentford have got next week. I thought this one was fascinating because it did not go how I thought it would at all.
Okay.
I said a lot last week that I felt like Bowen was a real priority own for this week. Really thought that he was going to be a good asset for this one because Everton defensively have been shaky. I think that's a polite way of saying it.
Yeah.
And West Ham have actually been good in attack. They've put together some nice movements. Obviously, Bowen gets the goal last week. Whatever you want to say about last week's goal is fine, but he gets the goal last week. And I thought they'd kick on today. But Everton, I don't know whether they were buoyed by wanting to do it for Kenwright or what. I don't know. But there was something different about Everton in the last couple of weeks. They are
Dominic Calvert-Lewin's the difference, isn't he?
Well, yeah, him being back is important for sure, because they've now got a bit of threat in front of goal, which is key. You know, it's the problem that Chelsea have got right now. You can be as solid as you want defensively, or not in Everton and Chelsea's case, but I guess you're right in some ways, because, you know, what we were just saying about Chelsea is that when they go a goal down, they're lost.
Yeah.
And with Everton, that was almost the same as well without Calvert-Lewin. With Calvert-Lewin back, there's always a route to a goal, because Calvert-Lewin, now, can he stay fit? That's another question, but
gives the whole squad a lift, I think, when he plays.
It does. And Everton looked better today. They were by far the better team. They deserved the win. West Ham disappointing. You can't be the home team and not have a shot on target. That is...
So what's gone wrong there then? What's gone wrong? Because they haven't looked like that, West Ham.
No,
They've
they
looked
haven't.
all right.
I mean, you said during the game they looked tired. Yeah. Maybe they did. Maybe, I
thought Antonio looked cooked.
Yeah.
I thought he got hauled off on 55 and that was about 10 minutes too late. He looked absolutely knackered.
But maybe that was in part because he's never... Antonio is always 5 minutes away from an injury.
Yeah.
And they've been playing European football and they're still in the League Cup. So, you know, we were speaking about Spurs before and how they get these nice long gaps between games. Well, West Ham have got the complete opposite of that.
Does this worry you then as an Areola owner? As many will be, right?
Yeah, I mean, I saw this as a locked-in...
I thought it was a
cleanly today.
Yeah.
And I must admit, when Everton scored, I was like, well, that's really irritating, because I don't have the money, really, to upgrade Areola to anybody else.
Yeah.
The fixtures still look nice for Areola over the next few weeks, so I'm not overly concerned about it. But I don't see a clean sheet against Brentford next week if Brentford play like they did against Chelsea.
Do you think that the European... So the comments being made by Simon in the chat about European football isn't helping West Ham. I tend to agree with that. I wonder whether the European football is just starting to catch up a little bit with those that are not used to it.
It's a small squad as well for West Ham.
Yes, and you've got Brighton as well drawing today to Fulham, and I wonder whether that European football is just starting to kick in a bit.
Maybe. I mean, West Ham played European football last year. They went all the way to the final and then obviously won it. So they should be a bit more used to it, but they still have a relatively small squad. So in terms of rotating, they're not able to do that in maybe the same way that Liverpool are in the Conference League, or, you know, that maybe Arsenal can do once they qualify, or Man City will do once they qualify. The other teams that are playing European football this year, I do think have the opportunity, most of them, not Brighton, most of them have the opportunity to rotate their squads.
Yeah.
Brighton and West Ham, much, much smaller squads. And what we do see is that if they do try and rotate in Europe, it doesn't necessarily go as they would want, like West Ham losing in Europe. Brighton have tried rotating in the Premier League to try and bolster their European threat, because obviously they struggled at the beginning of that competition.
Yeah.
And then that's had negative results to them in the Premier League when they've done that. So there's definitely something in it. Does it put me off? Maybe a little bit, yeah. Okay. Because particularly when you're talking about the midfielder slots, because, you know, you've got Matoma, you've got Bowen in those middle spots. They're valuable. They're precious in FPL. Okay. And you do want the players performing at their best, but you also want the teams that they play for performing well, because that's obviously going to make a difference to the level of potential returns that they're going to get. Okay.
And a quick view on Kudus then from midfield. He was a highlight for me, I thought. I mean, I think as he got on in the game, he sort of then started to tire a little bit, I thought, but he looked pretty ex-lively at the beginning, despite a couple of what I would call welcome to the Premier League tackles from the likes of Tarko.
Oh, Tarkovsky was in a bad mood today.
Yeah, he went on in him a couple of times, didn't he? Which I don't like to see, but then, you know, I guess you can expect that from somebody like him. He's on the radar for me. He's on the radar because he's going to cost you a little bit less than Jarrod Bowen as well. I think he's shown enough in this game to get a bit more of a regular start. And I do wonder, as Antonio was walking off there, I do wonder whether Kudus might be, because the West Ham faithful are kind of like, you know, this guy needs to start instead of Antonio up front in that 9. And if that is the case, then there will be a time, I think, this season where he comes bang onto radar, Kudus. But for now, maybe it's just still a wait and see. Maybe it is. Another team that's got European football but doesn't seem to be affecting them, Aston Villa,
well,
albeit...
That's because they've got the king of European football in managing them.
True. Yes, true. But, a game against Luton at home is absolutely a game, European football or not, that you would expect Aston Villa to win. John McGinn popping up with the first goal from a Douglas Luiz assist, and then I think sort of Bailey getting an assist as well. So until Diaby kind of popped up onto the radar, it was all it was the non-FPL assets. It was, a lot of us sitting there with kind of Watkins and Cash, and a few of us sitting there with Diaby as well, and bloody John McGinn that gets the opening goal. Tell me about your view on Aston Villa then. Any panic on Watkins now? Because literally the world's brought him in after those performances recently, not least last week where he was electric. And actually many managers looking at the likes of Diaby as the make weight to get to Watkins in terms of saving a bit of money to reinvest in the front man. So if you did that, you're a bit gutted, aren't you? How are you feeling about the Diaby Watkins thing now going forward?
Well, I must admit, I wasn't planning to stay tripled up on Aston Villa.
Okay.
The plan was to bring Watkins in, and then probably sell Diaby for a Brighton mid because don't have one of them, or look to free up that slot to maybe go to an Arsenal mid because don't have one of them. Maybe not the Arsenal mids this week because it's Newcastle, but certainly Brighton this week. So I kind of was like, well, that's probably where I'll look to go. Having said that, now the Diaby, and we haven't watched this one because it wasn't live on TV in the UK.
We do need to watch Match of the Day for this.
Do need to get a view on Diaby because obviously on paper, it looks like he had a great game today. Whether he did or not, I have to kind of just watch that and see. Because being all out invested in Aston Villa, it does feel a little bit heavy, Villa, to have three of them.
Well, let's have a look at the fixtures going forward. One of the reasons a lot of us are invested in Villa is because the fixtures look so good. So obviously it's Forest away next, then Fulham at home. That Spurs game is now looking very, very difficult. In fact, I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a cracking game. And then Bournemouth, City, Arsenal. So, yeah, listen, you're not going to change anything for the next two, I don't think. But then from 13 onwards, you might consider it.
Yeah. I think probably I'll end up sticking, unless I watch and think, oh, somebody was really lucky today. I mean, I must admit, I do feel a little bit lucky because I was a bit raging, wasn't I? I was while this game was on, towards the back end of it, I was helping the kids to carve their pumpkins in the kitchen, and I looked at SofaScore and was like, oh, the Aston Villa clean sheet's gone, and you went, you want some good news? And I was like, what's the good news? And he was like, Cash went off just before, and I was like, oh, yes. That is great news.
It was nice to see that Matty Cash clean sheet banked and then the clean sheet go. Yeah,
that's
so rarely happens, but that's a lovely bit of FPL.
That's the kind of FPL jam that you
love
enjoy.
A bit of that jam, don't we?
Yeah, particularly because I was kind of, and I know you'll sit there and go, well, you didn't really consider it, but I did look at Charlie Taylor and think, can I play him this week? Should I bench Burn? Should I bench Cash? And I was like, I can't bench Cash, not against Luton. And I couldn't bench Simicast against Nottingham Forest. And I was like, can I bench Burn against Wolves for Charlie Taylor? And I was like, no, I don't think so. So I played him and I was a bit gutted. So had that Cash clean sheet gone as well, I think I'd have been really gutted that had happened. But yeah, I think I'm going to stay trebled up for now because I don't think that on the back of that performance, even with a Watkins blank, I'm not doing anything about that. I'm not going to take him back out again.
No, he's sticking for me. I brought him in for this little run of 3. I'll decide what I do in 13, but I'm happy that he's there. Happy that he's there. Before we move on, Sam, we've got to say hello and welcome to Caleb Seekins. Hey, Caleb, who has just joined us on the FPL Family YouTube channel as a member. So, Caleb, welcome. Welcome. Your chat contributions will now be highlighted, mate. So get in there. If you've got questions for us, if you want to say hi to the other FPL Family YouTube channel members, then you're more than welcome, mate. Get yourself in the chat, and your chat things will be highlighted. They'll be highlighted, and we'll be able to see them loud and clear in the chat. So that's Aston Villa. Like you say, we've got to move on pretty briefly because we've still got to watch the highlights of that game. Another game we've got to watch the highlights of, although I have seen the goals. Liverpool 3, Nottingham Forest 0. I'll give my view in a minute, but what do you think? Liverpool are cooking, right?
Yeah. You were alongside Klopp and Postecoglou in the kitchen together.
Okay.
It's going positively for both of our teams this season. Liverpool, I didn't expect anything else though, really, in this game. I mean, I must admit, we couldn't find anywhere to listen to it, could we?
No.
So we were just following it on kind of socials and on SofaScore. And I said to you, like, I don't ever remember watching a game where there was not a single bit of colour in the line for the one team. It was all Liverpool the whole game till like literally the last couple of minutes where Nottingham Forest had some opportunities. But yeah, Liverpool looking really, really good, and I think we're starting to see a little bit more consistency, I guess, from some of your important players now. So like Darwin putting his hand up now, every time he's playing, looking like he's gonna return and returning FPL points. And that makes him a much, much more interesting conversation, I think, in FPL, because in the past we've kind of gone, well, there's a bit of uncertainty about whether he's going to start or not, and there's all of those issues.
I'm not actually convinced that he would have started today, and I have to give a shout out to Luis Diaz and what he's going through, because that is really not good. What he's going through, that's really, really awful. If you've not seen it, then obviously you can find it online somewhere. But hopefully his mum and dad can be found and safe and everything else, right? Because his
mum's back, isn't they? They've released his mum.
I think so. It's truly awful for him. So obviously he's not playing today. Were that not going on, then I think he would have played, and I think Jota would have played up front.
Okay.
But nevertheless, you're right. I think, over the last couple of weeks, Darwin Núñez has started to put his hand up to say, look, I deserve a spot in this first 11, and he's returning from an FPL perspective as well. So, no, asked me 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I said, well, no, because you've got Gakpo and you've got Jota there as well. But I'm starting to wonder whether he is worth a little bit more of a shout in FPL. He's probably worthy of conversation now, right?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, I'm doubled up on Liverpool now.
You got Costas, right?
Because my spirit animal, Costas Tsimikas, has come in, and the man is a legend and returned a nice 6 points today, which is fantastic. I don't know if he was on for a bonus point actually towards the end. I think that the third goal might have thrown him out of it. He very
narrowly missed out on a 1 point.
I think the third goal threw him out of the bonus points. But that is what you will get with Tsimikas, because he is attacking. That's how he plays. He does take set pieces because he's on corners. But whilst Robertson's out, and with Liverpool's fixtures the way that they are, the clean sheets do look likely.
Yeah. The turning point was when he rested him against Toulouse on Thursday. And I was like, okay. Yeah, you're important for the league. And he is, right? Because the players that we played against Toulouse at left back, God love them, they were academy kids, and they did get caught out for the goal. And the young lad, I can't remember the young lad's name, but he got caught out a bit at the end as well. But Gunu, right? They're 17, 18. But it just shows you that, Tsimikas is the one. And I have to say, with Liverpool's fixtures coming up as they are, it's Luton up next, then Brentford, then it's that massive City game in 13th, Fulham, Sheffield United, Palace. With maybe the exception of the City game, you'd say that, despite Liverpool's defence not looking great, for long periods this season, I've been saying we like to concede a daft odd goal, don't we? I can see some clean sheets there, mainly because the midfield three is cooking right now. It's cooking, and it's starting to protect that back line a lot better. Some of the summer signings we've brought in, and you've heard me talk about Szoboszlai here already.
And McAllister, though.
And McAllister, but also Gravenberch is a player as well, by the way. We've done it again, haven't we? We've gone and scouted another top player. I saw something, who did we buy him from? Bayern, wasn't it? Was it Dortmund or Bayern? Bayern, I think. I saw a tweet from somebody, one of the Liverpool fanzines, saying, is someone going to call Bayern and be like, are you sure you've sold us this player for the right money? Because we've stolen him off of Bayern for next to no money.
They were too busy trying to get Harry Kane
Looks unbelievably good. Super chat from Kens. Thank you, Kens, for the super chat. Evening, guys. Hello, mate. I'm absolutely in love with Liverpool 2.0. Mate, it's clicking, isn't it? It's looking really, really good. Dominated the game until the last 10 minutes, really. Núñez is my favourite player now. Thoughts with Diaz? Yeah, absolutely thoughts with Diaz. No question about that. And I did see another chat in here from somebody saying that, here's Simon Peake converting his ex-Chaos into goals this year. Núñez is starting to do that. But that, as we saw with Klopp and Liverpool 1.0, it's the midfield three that enable that, right? It was the Gini Wijnaldum, Henderson, Fabinho, pivot.
Yeah.
What would you even call it? I don't know. That sort of axis that enabled the Salah, Mane and Firmino thing to go and do its thing. The 2.0 has always had the attacking intent. Certainly last season, the front 3 or 4 was always kind of there, but the 3 was weird. Now we've got the McAllister, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch in there. Curtis Jones, who I think, I've been critical of Curtis Jones in the past. Actually, he looks really, really good so far this season. They look on it, and I'm telling you now, Szoboszlai is... I think he's already, and this is red goggles, right? So feel free to come at me in the chat as much as you want. But he's already right up there with the best midfielders in the league, in my opinion, Szoboszlai. He does so much for the team. And don't come at me with this, he hasn't scored yet and he's only got a few assists. What he does for the team and how he covers for Salah on that side, allowing Salah to come in and be more creative, is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm very happy to be doubled up on Liverpool. I would find it difficult to know how to treble up.
Yes.
Because...
Fair play, yeah.
With Az and I had our first ever row on Thursday's Q&A this week.
I know, I was there for it.
I know you were. Are you all right over there?
Yeah, it's just my coaster.
Your coaster's going everywhere. Because I just don't understand why anybody would pay the money for Trent when you can have Tsimikas. I just don't understand it, because you're not getting anything extra. In fact, Trent got less points today because he got booked. But I don't think that Trent offers you anywhere near... For the money of difference, I just don't think there's any comparison between them.
No.
So you go Tsimikas, you obviously have Salah. I don't think that that's up for discussion, and I think if you don't have Salah, you're going to have to find a way. The other position's difficult because there's Darwin, who I think is the obvious third choice for me. He's the obvious third choice, but there is always a risk factor there. There is always the risk of a bit of a benching.
And you can't... Would you pick him over Watkins?
I think you'd have to have him alongside.
God,
so I think
you can't, though, can you?
Well, you can if you go for a Cole Palmer in midfield, and that's your cheap option, because he's only 7.2, 7.3. So you can have a Darwin, Haaland, Watkins front 3 and have a budget enabling 5th midfield. It is possible to do that. But I do think it's a bit of a struggle, and I also think that the midfielders are harder, because do you go for Diaz, let's see, but the Jotters, I don't think Gakpo's an option. Do you go with a cheaper option, somebody like a Szoboszlai, because there's some attacking threat there now, and we're starting to see that semi-consistently coming into his game now in terms of FPL returns. But then that's taking up one of those precious midfielder spots that we're always banging on about. So I think the double up is okay. I think having Salah and Tsimikas is the obvious route to investment in Liverpool right now.
Okay. All right, well, there we go. That's the Liverpool game covered. Let's talk about the Manchester derby then. Manchester United 0, and we're going to have to rattle through some of these games, Sam, because of all that nonsense at the beginning of the stream. We're well over time.
I think we can probably stop at this one.
United 3, they wish. United 0, City 3, Haaland at the double, gets the assist as well. Do you know what? I was just about to say a vintage performance from City. I don't think it was. I think they played well, and the goals were really, really good. Especially Haaland's goal, his header. But I felt like they were in third gear, City. I felt like at any minute, if they wanted to step it up, they could have gone to fourth or gear or fifth. They just didn't need to.
No.
Because of how poor United were. Yeah. Go on, give me a view. Go on.
I sold Alvarez this week, as you did.
Yeah.
And I didn't
uncomfortably.
I did not like it. I did not want to do it.
Yeah.
I stressed about it. I lost sleep about it. It was that bad. However, I did it. And when the Manchester United team sheet came out, I was like, oh my God. Oh,
I had the same thing. Maguire and Evans against Haaland and Alvarez. I was like, I've made a mistake.
This is worse than I thought. This is worse than I thought. And to be honest...
And the Villa game was going on and Watkins hadn't scored. I was like, Alvarez is going to have a field day here.
I was just in a state. And how I've survived it, I don't know. Because Alvarez was excellent in that game. As always, excellent.
He was class,
but
by the way,
just
Alvarez.
Excellent.
What a good player.
In my opinion, him and Rodri are City's standout players this season by such a long way. Yeah. The pair of them have been unbelievably good, as you could tell by the fact that when Rodri wasn't there, City were just not. Yeah. They were just not on it. Now,
could you just answer this question for me then? Because we've just and it's only just popped up because Danny's reminded me of the question in the chat. So yeah, I've seen the team sheet. You've got Maguire and you've got Evans there. I'm like, cool, blimey, they're down to the bare bones. And you look at the bench. Varane's sitting there.
I know why.
Varane's sitting on the bench.
Why?
And then he gets asked, Erik ten Hag, pre-match, that exact question by the Sky Sports people, and he's like, "Oh, it's tactical," and I'm like, "What are you doing?" That's like, why would you play them two? And not Varane. I just don't get it.
Well, I remember, I don't know whether it was on the Q&A or on Ohana with you or on the main pod with Cows and Jules. At some point on a pod last week, I said, the problem that you have at Manchester United is that nobody's going to deal with Haaland. So we saw it with some teams so far this season, the Craig Dawson effect, that you kind of go, right.
Man to man.
You are marking Haaland.
End of.
That is your job. You do not let him go. You hold his hand if you want to, put a blanket around him, give him a cuddle.
And to be fair, Dorzinho had a cracking game against it, didn't he? For Wolves.
And the only games that City have done badly in this season have been when somebody has done that. And somebody has gone, I am in charge and that is my job and that's what I'm going to do. And I sat on a stream this week and said, well, the only person that they've really got that can do that at Manchester United is probably Varane.
Yeah.
So why is he on the bench and he's playing Maguire and Evans? Because Maguire and Evans have, one, not got the pace to deal with Haaland and Alvarez, and two, they don't have the physical strength to deal with him either. So the whole thing was a disaster. Moving on from that tactical nonsense that was going on with Ten Hag, I thought City were good. Not excellent, just good. They played well. Yeah. But they played within themselves, in my opinion. Like, they could have had, and probably should have, Foden should have had more. Grealish could have had one.
A few goals.
Doku could have had one.
Yeah.
They could have had more than they did. But I thought they played conservatively, actually, in this game, Manchester City. And they played with United for most of the game. They were in control of it. United never really looked like getting anything from it. There were a couple of moments where they got through on goal, but nothing really. And the problem I've got is that by the back end of that game, you could see the slightly toxic stuff coming back out again. The tackle from Anthony, Bruno Fernandes.
Anthony, man. United fans, tell me about this player. I've not rated him ever since he got to the Premier League. He's all fart, no poo. He's cutting in, great on YouTube, terrible. And he's like kicking out at like... It
was just so unnecessary.
What are you doing?
Should have got sent off, in my opinion.
Absolute muppet of a player.
But Bruno Fernandes could have been sent off as well. Now, Bruno Fernandes is the captain now.
Yeah, but he's got to be looking at what's around him and getting frustrated. Surely.
I understand that. I totally understand that. And we'll bring this back to FPL because...
Yeah. Good idea.
Because Bruno Fernandes and Rashford are still relatively highly owned in the game. I cannot understand, for the life of me, even with the fixtures, and Manchester United have got great fixtures coming up, but even with the fixtures the way that they are, I cannot understand why anyone holds either of those two players. Because Rashford, there's a picture of him laying on the floor, just looking like, why am I even here anymore? There's Bruno Fernandes having tantrums and stropping about again. And you kind of look at that and go, well, from an FPL point of view, they're so expensive. They're taking up valuable midfielder slots and they're just not worth it.
But if you've got one of them...
No, you have to sell them.
But listen, the next three fixtures, like, I've got to find them here on the list. Man United, there you are. Fulham away, Luton at home, Everton away.
Why would you keep them, though?
I know.
What have you seen?
14 Newcastle away, 15 Chelsea at home. Again, we just talked about how in trouble Poch could be if he's not winning a game, or at least he's not even in a game until game week 14. Same can be said for Ten Hag. He's got to get 6 points out of that, hasn't he? Fulham, Luton, Everton. At least. And tell me about, we've got to move on because it's Man U and I'm not investing in him in FPL. We've got to talk about City because it's far more interesting in FPL. But talk to me about like Amrabat off and Mason Mount on at half time.
Tactical, apparently.
What the hell is he doing? I appreciate Amrabat's got a yellow card. I appreciate he can be a bit of a hothead. But he was doing an all right job and he was getting amongst it and he was stopping City from creating a load of chances. Mount comes on, the midfield opens up, and if you open up your midfield against City, guess what? You get absolutely killed. And that's exactly... And I'm sitting there going... I'm just some muppet that talks about FPL, and I can see that that's going to happen. This is Erik ten Hag, the manager at Manchester United.
Yeah, I know.
And he's bench Varane, and then he makes what I would consider to be a game sabotaging substitution like that at half-time. And part of me, and this is the Liverpudlian in me coming out again, I'm like, is this guy looking to get sacked? Is he looking to get sacked? Making decisions like that? That's just ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Manchester United, they were very bad today. And I appreciate everything you've just said about those 3 fixtures. However...
You can't invest.
You can't. But Lee, even if you're invested, with 10 game weeks in, apart from one worldie from Bruno Fernandes a few weeks ago, which made me hold him for a week longer than I should have done, they have shown nothing for 10 game weeks. Now, I know that the fixtures are going to be nice, but they've had nice fixtures before now.
Are United out of the top 4 then? Out of the race for the top 4?
Yeah, what are they? They're 11 points behind, aren't they?
We're saying Chelsea are out. Are United out?
Yeah.
Big, innit? Big.
I think you have to tell them. No, Manchester United, you have the opposite problem. Because as I've said already, we sold Alvarez this week. We got
City, you have the opposite problem. Yeah.
We sold Alvarez this week.
Yeah.
We've got a massive problem next week because it was Bournemouth. And
Bournemouth at home, yeah.
I don't want to not have Alvarez. But then after that, the next fixtures are difficult.
Yeah.
Which is why I was sort of happy to sell... Well, I was never happy to sell Alvarez. But it's kind of what forced me to do it. Is I looked at the fixtures and went, I've got... Okay, the Derby, then it's Bournemouth, then it's 3 horrible fixtures. And Watkins has got like this really great run and he's in such good form and blah, blah, blah. But I now look at it and go, I only have Haaland for this game against Bournemouth. And yes, I can captain him. But I still only have Haaland. And that does not feel like enough heading into the game against Bournemouth. But
you ain't selling Watkins.
Well, no. And I could go for a midfielder instead.
Well, go on then. Who caught your eye from a midfield perspective then? Because Grealish comes back into the team today. Yeah. And there's this bit of narrative going on about...
With him and Doku.
So with him and Doku, depending on what Pep wants to do in a particular game, he'll pick one over the other. And the general narrative is, if he wants control of the game, it's Grealish. And if he wants to attack with a bit more gung-ho, it's Doku. So here's a game where he wanted a bit more control. I thought Jack was on it today, by the way.
He was great today.
I thought he was on it. Yeah. He played like a player that's now got some competition on that left-hand side. Do you know what I mean? He's looking over his shoulder going, bloody hell, that guy's good. I need to up my game. And he did. He was really good today, Jack. Yeah. So I'm looking at that Bournemouth game thinking maybe Jack gets a nod because maybe Doku's the one that's kind of making him up his game. I don't know. But Phil gets the goal.
I thought Phil Foden was excellent today.
Looked good again. Yeah. Where's Phil Foden? He's good, isn't he?
I thought, and Rodri looked good again today. And Rodri's cheap and he's a nice budget enabler. And if you've got problems across the rest of your team and you've got to get Haaland and you've got to get Watkins and you've got to get Salah and you've got to get all these other guys, then you could go there.
Who would you go? Because we've sat here and we've said we like the look of 3 Man City midfielders and we haven't even talked about the best player on the part. It was Bernardo Silva again.
But.
Yes, go on.
Can you really use a transfer this week to buy a Man City player, knowing that longer term, as in past Bournemouth? Now, I'm not saying that your Manchester City player can't return points in game weeks 12, 13, 14, 15.
Chelsea in 12, they're going to batter Chelsea.
Oh, that's true.
Going to batter Chelsea. Then it's Liverpool.
Then it's you and then it's us.
It's us too.
And
so
then it's
difficult,
Villa.
Right? Villa away, difficult. So that 3, I can get on board with that. But Bournemouth, Chelsea, God, they're going to retire Poch, aren't they, next week in 12?
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe actually that's my... In my head, we were further along than that when it was Liverpool and Spurs.
At the Bridge as well. What game do the Chelsea fans not want next at Stamford Bridge?
They've got to go to
City.
Spurs and then they've got City coming.
Oh, my God.
That's pretty horrible, isn't it?
Chelsea
and then have they got Arsenal after that?
I'm on the Off the Bench podcast with Harry tomorrow. I cannot wait.
Don't upset Harry. He's probably in the chat. He's upset enough. Leave him alone.
I tell you what, he's as honest as the day is long when it comes to Chelsea. He's no airs and graces. He will not defend them. He'll say, yeah, we are craply. You're right.
Oh, leave poor Harry alone. I think it's difficult though, isn't it, with Manchester City, because you are in that moment where you go, okay, what do I do?
Yeah.
Do I invest for Bournemouth and probably Chelsea, and then maybe look to sell for Liverpool, Spurs, Villa?
Yeah.
Do I stay with just Haaland? And if you are going to invest in more than just Haaland, who is it going to be? And how are you going to do that? Is it going to be Alvarez? Because they don't have League Cup. They're out of that. So they get a rest in midweek as well.
Absolutely,
going into this one. And then, of course, we do get Champions League and stuff back in again. But I am finding the Man City conversation the most...
It's tricky.
The most tricky to navigate right now.
It's tricky. All right. Well, listen, Man City, investable for the next couple, I'd suggest. Not Man United. Not Man United. Do not go and buy Anthony, whatever you do. Of the games that were played on Saturday, Sam, we seem to have glossed over some of them. The Neto injury, hoping that's not too bad for him. Pulled a hammy, didn't he? Just as he was about to unleash a shot against Newcastle. 0 for Trippier, but I actually thought Wolves played really well in that game. And
I'm not surprised,
no concerns. No concerns from Newcastle. They will bounce back from that. They'll be good. And then Arsenal, if anybody, and I know that our friend Praz did go for Nketiah on his wildcard this week. Fair play. What a differential. Popped up with the 3 goals. And then Vieira and Tomiyasu. So if you've got Arsenal assets, it was just a case of you probably picked the wrong one. I bought in Saka a couple of weeks ago, or not bought him in. I held him on my wildcard. I didn't sell him with a view to I want him for this game. This is a big game that I want him for. So to only come away with an assist was disappointing, no doubt about it. And of course, I had Gabriel that I bought in last week, who then didn't play. So it sounded like that was maybe tactical. Maybe played quite a lot of football over the international break. So I'm not concerned about Gabriel. But it was disappointing given that I thought that would be a big Arsenal win to 0. And it was. And I'd got nothing really from my FPL assets.
Yeah.
Which was a bit of a shame.
I must admit, as somebody that's not got a single Arsenal player, this was the game of the weekend that I was most worried about. I was worried about Alvarez, but I was most worried about this one. I actually did do a number of Patreon calls with our patrons last week on Zooms and suggested in all of them that if Jesus was ruled out, you'd go for Nketiah because he's so selfish. In a game against Sheffield United, I just thought he might go off and he did.
Played really well.
And he's one that I was a bit like, oh, that's annoying because had I felt that I didn't have to get Watkins this week, I probably would have punted on Nketiah because I couldn't really easily get Saka. But I do feel like I got away with one this week because although the clean sheet stuck, a lot of people had invested in Gabriel rather than Saliba or any of the other defenders. So from that perspective, that went in my favour. The fact that Martinelli blanked, Ødegaard didn't start, and Saka just got an assist.
Yeah.
I did feel like I got away with it. And then going into next week, obviously, it's Newcastle, which was the part of the reason I didn't invest in Arsenal. After that Newcastle game, I will have to work out how I'm going to invest in Arsenal because I can't... They will win games like this because they are really good this year again. I need to be invested in them, but I will wait for 12 now.
This was the game where I wanted some FPL points from Arsenal for sure because now I'm looking at my team for next week thinking they go to St James's and I don't like it obviously as much as Sheffield United at home. So the reason for going early on Arsenal was this game, and it's just annoying because anyone else that did that, we know that we've called it right. You know, we've called that right. 5-0 Arsenal, we've called it. But yeah, rest for Gabriel, rest for Ødegaard, Saka just with the assist. It's a tough one to take, I have to say. It's a tough one to take. But Sam, that has not stopped me having a good week, and we'll talk about our weeks in just a second. We should also mention that if anybody's thinking of taking any early transfers, just be aware that there are some League Cup ties going on, some EFL Cup fixtures going on in midweek. So Chelsea have got to go to Blackburn. Oh no, Chelsea are hosting Blackburn. It's Arsenal, West Ham. I'm not going to read them all out, but you can see them here, right? So there's going to be a lot of teams where you'll be looking at FPL assets that will have to get through games on... I was going to say Tuesday, Wednesday, but Tuesday is the Mansfield, Port Vale and the Exeter Middlesbrough game. So it's actually all the Premier League teams playing on the Wednesday. So yes, just keep an eye out for what happens there. And if you can hold those transfers, it might not be a bad option to do that. I'd expect some rotation from the bigger boys, of course.
But some of them are playing each other.
But some of them are playing each other.
Arsenal
so
and West Ham.
If you can,
Man United and Newcastle.
If you can, just kind of stop that knee from jerking a little bit. Stop that knee from jerking. A quick shout out to all of our patrons. I know many of them will be in this evening. So guys, hello and welcome. Patreon.com/FPLFamily is where you can find out more about what Sam and I do over on Patreon. If you're looking for additional weekly podcasts, if you'd like to take part in our Manager of the Month competition, or as Sam was saying earlier, if you'd like to do one-to-one Zoom calls with us about your team, maybe you're playing your wild card, maybe you're thinking of playing a chip, that is the time at which you can come and call upon Sam and I to help you out with that on your team. So if you want a little bit more FPL Family in your life, patreon.com/FPL Family. All the links are in the description below. That is where you can find that out. And here's a quick update for our Manager of the Month competition for October. So this does not include Game Week 10 because I just finished. And I need to do an update tomorrow to the standings. But at the end of Game Week 9, it was Ian in charge with 171 points, then Rory, and then James. So well done to you three guys for being top of the shop at the end of Game Week 9. Let's see whether one of those three or somebody from the chasing pack comes out after having a brilliant Game Week 10. I'll be updating all the patrons on that tomorrow, guys. So look out for a post on the Manager of the Month winner for October. Is it going to be Ian, Rory or James, or is it going to be somebody coming out from that pack? We shall see. We shall see. Sam, talk us through your game week. A nice green arrow, a 45.5% green arrow, no less. 79 points. Not bad at all. Not bad.
Yeah, it was a good week for me this week. I think heading into this one, I must admit I was stressed, wasn't I? I think this week I found quite stressful working out what I was going to do. With the exception of Dan Burn, who was a disappointment, and Jarrod Bowen, who was a disappointment. But the rest, and Ollie Watkins, but he doesn't count really because everyone's got him. I was pleased with the rest. So obviously Matt Cash going off before the clean sheet was lost, that's nice. Areola even picking up the save point is nice, because when you don't get the clean sheet, you do want there to be some reward. So having a clean sheet
He pulled off an absolute worldie save, Areola, from Decore, wasn't it?
Excellent one, yeah.
Great save that, wasn't it?
Tsimikas then with the 6. The midfielder's doing me really well. Obviously my 2 Spurs boys, great. Nice, really pleased with them. Nice. Diaby finally coming in with those points, which is I was so pleased about that.
And this screenshot is taken from before the official app has been updated with the points. I think Diaby got the 3.
He got 13.
So he's sitting on 13. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so 13 for Diaby. Salah was my captain this week with 16. I never looked at anybody else. I did say multiple times. I kept saying, would it surprise you to see Haaland get a brace this weekend? No, absolutely wouldn't. But I thought that Salah would get more than that. Like, I thought Haaland would get a brace, but I thought Salah might have a hattie in him against Nottingham Forest this time around. So sure. I just called it wrong. But that's fine. It's still a captain return. And like you said earlier, Haaland actually doing nice things for my rank, even though he wasn't my captain. So that feels nice for a change. The only frustration really is the benching for Charlie Taylor, but a really, really, really nice big green arrow on the back of that one, which is really good because it's pretty much half the rank, 45% off the rank, which is good.
Charlie Taylor, yeah, we were sitting in a pub, weren't we, having a quick beer on Saturday, and that one popped up on Gillette Soccer Saturday.
Oh my god!
Listen, you're never playing him with that team, are you? Let's face it.
No, I mean, like I said earlier, I did think about it, and because I looked at him and was like, I think there's a clean sheet. I didn't think he was going to get a goal. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
But it was such a boring looking game on paper. I was like, that could be a clean sheet there for Charlie Taylor. Can I play him? Now, none of the attacking players were getting benched, so it was like, what? Burn? Maybe. Because I did keep saying, I don't think Newcastle will keep a clean sheet against Wolves, and I was right. So I don't really know why I didn't play Taylor if I thought he had more chance of a clean sheet. I guess because he's so cheap that benching Burn for him feels horrible. And if Newcastle had pulled off a clean sheet, because Trippier is so highly owned, not having a Newcastle defender in my team would have hurt. I think that's probably why I did it. But it is what it is. I'm not going to cry over Charlie Taylor's 6 points.
No, absolutely not.
But yeah, and a really nice green arrow. And it puts me in a nice position then heading into game week 11.
Yeah,
goodness.
All right. So 79 points, all good. Up to 655. Overall rank 166k, looking good. Early thoughts, very early thoughts on transfer for next week, or are we just taking our time?
Well, I looked at it, didn't I?
Bus team must be looking pretty good, I'd say.
I was like, my bus team looks great.
It's looking alright, yeah.
I don't necessarily think I need to make a transfer, which would be really great because then I could save it for the Arsenal transfers that I'd like to make for game week 12.
Because actually, that Arsenal-Newcastle game, that's the difficult game to call, I'd say, for next week. And you only really got Burn, who you can bench.
Go to the bench because I want to play Mark Gahey from next week because as I've been talking about with the Crystal Palace defence.
Don't mind it.
Burn can go to the bench. Gahey can come on and play. I'd actually quite like to play Charlie Taylor as well next week, weirdly again.
Sure.
So actually quite like my team. The only one that's kind of on the radar potentially is Bowen, but one bad game doesn't make a bad player. I'll watch what happens in midweek with Bowen, obviously, because the other thing I have to consider here is that a number of my players are going to be playing midweek football this week, so we've got to make sure that they make it through those fixtures okay, and then they're all right for the weekend. But early thoughts are... Maybe boring, a roll. Sam. We'll probably have a roll.
Nothing boring about it, Sam. Nothing boring about it. If your bus team looks all right, it looks all right. A good week for me as well. Not complaining with that. 82. Overall rank up to 175k. A nice green arrow, 53%, which is nice any week, quite frankly. So, again, same as you. I've got the cash points. I've got the Diaby points. Maddison, Salah. There's Mr. Embremo sitting there, absolute hero for me last couple of weeks. All is forgiven, Brian. I was never thinking of selling you, honest. The Diaby points are obviously very welcome as well. You know what? Do you know what? It's weird, isn't it, in FPL? Because you get 82, which is a really good week for me. Yet I'm a bit peeved about the Pedro Porro clean sheet because it's a handball.
I don't blame you for that.
And he shouldn't get the clean sheet. He should get the clean sheet. And then obviously the Gabriel one where because he's not played, and I'm thinking, okay, well, at least I've got somebody great to come off the bench. No, it's Dan Burn, who I didn't fancy like you for the clean sheet, so benched him, thinking that Gabriel would play. And if he'd have played, I'm pretty sure they'd have still kept a clean sheet, Arsenal. So that stung a little bit. So I've got Gabriel going auto subbing off for 0 for Burn, which is really annoying. And the Pedro Porro. So had I had those two, I'd be up into the 90s and absolutely storming it. But as it is, I'm not going to whinge anymore because 82 is still pretty good. Definitely a slice of luck or two with the sort of Embuemo, last minute goal. The Saka assist is questionable, frankly, so we'll take it. Overall good week. Even the Salah captaincy, right? If Turner doesn't come barging out of his goal and fluffs his lines, then Salah doesn't get anything either, and the game week could look very different. So, different degrees of luck and weird roller coaster of stuff going on this week with Porro and Gabriel upsetting me a bit, but my midfielders, definitely playing their part in terms of bringing home the points. But for sure, it's Mr. Embremo that was the key to it all. A 13-pointer at whatever he was, 18, 19% EO, whatever he was at my rank, was very, very good indeed and very pleased with it. So, early thoughts for me for next week. I've got my Arsenal players, which obviously, as I said before when we were analysing that game, that it was this game, the Sheffield United game, this is the game I was looking for big points. Because now I've got, I wouldn't call it a problem, but now I've got a decision to make for next week because I've got Gabriel and Saka in place. But going to St James's, I don't really want to have to play Gabriel, I don't think, and I don't really want to have to play Burn either. So I've got one free transfer. It's probably going to be in defence, which means that Brian Embremo is going to get that state of execution and get the West Ham game. Elsewhere in my team, I'm pretty happy with it.
Get yourself a nice cheap Crystal Palace defender.
Or I go Tsimikas.
Oh!
Could go for Tsimikas because he's starting to look like a bit of a gift, isn't he? So Burn to Tsimikas is definitely on the cards, given that after the Newcastle game, I will want Gabriel back. And I do think that it was probably, I'd like to think it was a kind of more of a not a tactical, more of a rest thing because of the travel and stuff this week. So I do want Gabriel from game week 12 onwards, but for 11, maybe I'll get rid of Burn and get Tsimikas in because Newcastle's fixtures are like trickier going forward, right? So and Liverpool's do look good, and like I said before, that midfield three really protecting their back four, and I like Tsimikas. So that's my early thoughts on a transfer is Burn to Tsimikas, but lots of football to be played. Lots going on this week as well, Sam, between now and game week 11. So, there's a quick... I've pressed the wrong thing, but while I've pressed the wrong thing, I might as well...
Oh, while we're here, can I give a little shout out to the fact that we very, very quietly launched version 2 of the members area over the last couple of days.
Did you? Okay.
It's up on site. You can play with it. It's not finished
This
yet.
is Fantasy Football Scout, yeah?
But it's there on Fantasy Football Scout. If you go to the homepage, you'll see that there's a little link to the beta version of version 2 of the members area. Go have a little play with it. Give me any feedback that you've got on it. And we'll be updating it over the course of the next couple of weeks. Then we'll hard launch it as a proper V2 in probably a 2 or 3 weeks' time. But it's there to have a tinker with. The 3-player comparison is back. All of that good stuff. And you can still get 20% off if you sign up now as a member.
Cool, all right. So if you want to have a go and play with that, signing up to Fantasy Football Scout, the home of fantasy football, is where you can do that. There is a link on the screen. I think I've put the link in the description below as well. So as soon as we've finished here tonight, head over to fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. and have a look. Consider signing up to be a member over there. Sam, what is going on this week? Loads of stuff.
Wow, this week is about to go off. So
busy, isn't it?
Tomorrow you'll be able to catch Lee and the wonderful Harry, FPL Harry Daniels.
Off the bench, loving it.
Off the bench for the Premier League podcast. And then this week is just a bit bonkers. So you'll be able to catch me, obviously, as usual, with Jules and Kelly on the official pod on Thursday. You'll also be able to catch me on the fantasy show on Friday. You'll also be able to catch me on the Q&A with Az on Friday afternoon over on the Fantasy Football Scout channel. You'll be able to catch both of us on Saturday morning on Sky Sports News.
I'll be sick of us.
And for our patrons, we'll have our regular Ohana podcast, which we'll record on Thursday evening, which will go out on Friday morning. And then, Lee, we have...
Yes.
Ohana Live coming for our patrons this week.
We've got a live and interactive Q&A coming up on Friday night with our patrons. I'm so looking forward to this, guys. I haven't been massively promoting it on our social channels and stuff because I want it to go really well with the patrons, right? You guys, and there's some of you that are in the chat, you've been with us for ages, right? So let's make this a real special one on Friday. It's going to be... You guys are the stars of the show, right? We're going to be in there. We're in this really cool virtual environment. We've got our own virtual environment. We've had it all built for us by the company that I work for. You and I are going to be in there in the virtual environment. We're going to have all of our patrons in on like I can only describe it as like an auditorium style Zoom call, right? And you guys are going to be able to bring you to the big screen to ask us questions. We can talk about the upcoming game week with the other patrons. It's going to be patron exclusive, right? So if you're interested in joining us in a live interactive Q&A where we're going to be talking to you guys in our new virtual environment, then FPL Family Patreon is where you can go and find out a bit more information about that. Assuming that Friday goes well with the lovely patrons and I love them to bits, and that's why I'm going to try it out with them first.
They're the best.
Because I know that if I get something wrong or if something goes and
the camera will be wrong,
if something will go, we can't even get a bloody live stream, right? Never mind this. Then I know that the patrons that we've had for years will be like, "Don't worry, we're used to your nonsense." Assuming it goes well, then I'll start promoting it, and I'm hoping that it will really make an impact on our Patreon community. So guys, really looking forward to having that interactive Ohana Live Q&A next Friday afternoon. So get over to Patreon if you want to find out a bit more about that. So yes, loads going on this week, guys.
We might sleep as well this week.
Absolutely loads going on. You in particular, podcast after show after podcast. Guys, thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for putting up with us at the beginning with all the technical issues and the microphones falling over and all that sort of stuff. Leave us a like before you go. If you're new to the FPL Family channel, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button as well. Only about 38% of people that join us here on a Sunday night, Sam, are subscribed.
Really?
So yeah, it really makes a difference, guys, to the YouTube algorithms. Helps us to grow our audience. So if you're not subscribed yet, we would love you, before you go, to hit that big red subscribe button, and then you'll find out, you'll get the little notification every time we're live. Other than that, well done this week. It was a roller coaster week. Some really great scores, some challenging scores as well out there, but some generally really great scores going on this week. So well done in game week 10, and we'll see you this time next week for game week 11. All right, guys. Cheers and see you soon.
Bye, guys.